Hey everyone, Retro Tech Dad here with a quick look at the newly released MyArcade Street Fighter II Nano Arcade Player Pro. I got news that this was starting to ship out to retailers, and so I put in an order for it last week on Amazon US, and this just actually came in the other day. I thought it would be a fun break from the more in-depth stuff on the channel to take a look at this new line from the folks at MyArcade. I like being able to cover things that I myself am interested in, and really I am a sucker for anything hardware and gaming related. Now, I've purchased various products from MyArcade over the years, mostly because I can't resist some of their great packaging art that draws me in. So what we have here is the Super Street Fighter II Nano Player Pro, and this is part of a larger series of these Nano Player Pro units that cover other games like Ms. Pac-Man and Galaga. I'll admit that the gorgeous packaging and art is what drew me into this Street Fighter II release. This particular unit cost me $29.99 US off of the Amazon website and is available for shipping now. So let's quickly unbox this thing, check out what's included inside, and then talk more about the unit itself, including testing out the controls and checking out the actual games. As I already mentioned, one of the most appealing things to me about the MyArcade products is definitely the packaging. Unfortunately, my unit came in slightly crushed, as you can see on the side here, since Amazon loves shipping these products in a bubble mailer and then usually proceeds to toss it at my front door like they're playing some paperboy. Going around this package, and on the back we have some more information about the games included in this unit. We have two versions of Street Fighter II, with Super Street Fighter II The New Challengers and then Street Fighter II Special Champion Edition. Just looking at the screenshots, I have a feeling that these are not the arcade versions, despite this unit obviously being influenced by an arcade cabinet and the company itself literally being called MyArcade. They have done this quite a bit in the past, and it's definitely frustrating. So let's lift this back cover and learn more about the unit. This features officially licensed titles, fully playable video games, a 2.4-inch high-resolution display, and it's powered by 4 AAA batteries or USB Type-C, which I do like, as I'd be able to display this without needing to constantly change out those batteries. Below the features description, we have the controls layout and an explanation, with the 6 buttons being available to us to use for Street Fighter II, and then some photos of the unit on the right side. I don't suspect this is something I'd be throwing into my backpack or sling for serious gaming, but we will see how well the controls work here in a moment. Again, the art is just fantastic on this package. So let's get my trusty blade out, crack some seals, and then take a peek inside this box. Okay, let's remove this protective insert and then pull the Street Fighter II MyArcade unit out and put it to the side for a brief moment while we check out the rest of the contents. The only other things inside here are the MyArcade user guide, which has information about the unit itself in almost every possible language. The other insert is the MyArcade checklist for collectors to see what they are missing, and also some of the other products that are available in the MyArcade lineup. As you can see, they've got units with Mega Man, Space Invaders, the Data East collection, and some upcoming players as well. They've also got Street Fighter II in a larger micro player size and then in a handheld form. I'm curious to see if the micro player is worth the extra $10 for a better experience. Now let me know if you'd like for me to check that out and the handheld version out as well. On the other side, they've got this really interesting looking Atari Game Station Pro, which has not been released yet, and I will almost certainly be checking it out, as I can't resist anything gaming related, especially when it comes to hardware. And below that, we've got some additional players with Atari, Pac-Man, Galaga, and of course Ms. Pac-Man. Alright, so now it's time to take a tour around the Street Fighter II Nano Arcade and check out what's on the unit itself. So you can see this is a super attractive looking unit. I really love the yellow plastic, which makes the device really pop. The stickers are nice and glossy and look really great on here. This is obviously not like the actual arcade units, and that's okay. I don't mind too much since it is aesthetically pleasing. The right side panel art is really great with all the characters from Street Fighter II here. Again, this doesn't resemble any real life arcade cabinets that I know of. On the back, we have the mono speaker, the battery cover for those 4 AAA batteries, and then below that we have the volume up and down buttons and the USB Type-C for charging. On the left side, we have the same side panel art that we did see on the right side. Now on the front, at the bottom of the unit, we have the power switch, and then beside that, the home button, which returns you to the game selection screen. Right above that, we have a control panel and some of the art that sits in front of it. So let's take a closer look at this control panel. We have a 6-button configuration that are membrane based. These are pressing down pretty well, they have a nice satisfying thunkiness to them with a solid amount of travel. I definitely like the red, white, and blue aesthetic here, which is channeling the actual Street Fighter II arcade cabinets. Here's a side look at these buttons and how they press down, as well as how they sit above when fully pressed down. Here's the little mini joystick, and this is basically a membrane-based D-pad that has a mini joystick instead of the traditional 4-way pad. It's definitely an interesting design, and in some ways, given the size of this unit, I would have preferred them to use their screw-on joystick design that they've used in past devices, since I have a feeling this is going to be pretty difficult to use for Street Fighter. Alright, let's peel this fake graphic off on the screen, load up some batteries, and then turn it on for the first time and see what awaits us. I'm going to check out some of the build quality first, and then we will dive into gameplay after that. Now overall, the unit is pretty well made. The plastic is solid and the unit itself feels quite sturdy. It's surprisingly not as cheap feeling as maybe someone would expect. The panel here is a 2.4-inch high-resolution display according to MyArcade, and looking at the display head-on, the image is bright and looks decent, but the viewing angles are definitely problematic when you're going from side to side, but not so much when moving from top to bottom. As you can see, the image completely washes out from those side angles, unfortunately. On the audio side, we have a single speaker, and really it's nothing to write home about. It's also not super loud either. Now pressing down on the volume button will eventually turn the audio off, which is a good thing if you just want to display it silently. And here's a sample of the audio at max volume. Finally, the controls are interesting. I think the actual buttons are pretty solid, but for whatever reason my Z button feels completely different to press down on compared to the others here. A, B, C, and X, Y are thunkier, but the Z button seems like it's harder to press down and doesn't have that same thunkiness as the others. I will check out how it responds in-game when pressing down in just a moment. The mini joystick, as I suspected, is definitely difficult to pull off combos with, and even these simple ones are proving to be a challenge for me. Now I admit, I am not the greatest Street Fighter II player, but I do at least know that on a proper gamepad or arcade stick, I am able to pull off combos with relative ease. I'm not all that surprised here given the size of the unit, but I do feel for that price point, MyArcade could have spent a little more time on the playability aspect, since while small, it's not that small. Also, checking in on the button responsiveness, and everything does seem to be working well here. That Z button that I was concerned with earlier does seem to be working properly, and again, it is a little harder to press down on, but it does work correctly, as well as all of the others as you can see here. Finally, let's check out the USB-C charging and just make sure that this is working as it should, because for me, this will most likely end up as a cool display unit. So now I think it's time to check some games out. As I mentioned earlier, this unit only includes 2 different games, which are 2 versions of Street Fighter II. We have Super Street Fighter II, the new challengers, and Street Fighter II Special Champion Edition. So up first, let's check out Super Street Fighter II, the new challengers, which was the 4th game in the Street Fighter II series, and it came after Street Fighter II Hyper Fighting. And as I suspected, this is definitely not the arcade version, and I do believe this is using the Genesis ROM for what it looks like here. This is slightly modified and some features have been removed as they wouldn't work on this unit. The Genesis version was certainly impressive for the time, but it's definitely a bummer that we don't have the arcade version on here, especially at this price point. And here is some Street Fighter II Special Champion Edition, and again, it does look to be using the Genesis ROM. Unfortunately, I think this particular MyArcade unit is more of a miss than a hit. I was hopeful that maybe MyArcade was going to deliver more of what we saw with their Contra and Space Invaders micro players. I think the reality is that something like this is definitely geared towards collectors and someone that is just wanting to display something cool that they can keep on their shelf and turn it on occasionally, which is definitely someone like me. Remember, the main thing that drew me to this unit was the art, packaging, and just the way it pops with that yellow plastic. For most, this is going to be a pretty easy pass as MyArcade has these priced at $29.99 US, and I think it's just a tough sell for what's included here despite having official licensing. What we have here is a unit that is meant to resemble an arcade cabinet, and yet the actual ROMs on here are not the arcade versions. Not only that, this is definitely not something that you're going to be playing on seriously, and so really, for most, it's just something that's going to collect dust. And so I say this is for the most hardcore of Street Fighter fans or collectors of these Nano Arcade units. So let me know what you think, and have you ever purchased one of these MyArcade units, and if so, which ones have you tried out? Until the next video, as always, I am the Retro Tech Dad, and thank you so much for watching.